What would you do if you found yourself pregnant, yet no man had ever touched you? And how would your people react when they see this as a curse rather than a miracle? Did you see it? One villager whispered, his voice barely above a breath. The river? It's not flowing as it should? Another villager squinted at the water, a frown knitting his brow. It's too quiet. The spirits are restless. The ancestors are angry, a woman said, clutching her shawl tighter. We've seen omens before, but nothing like this. An elder stepped forward, his face grim. The spirits are always watching. We cannot ignore what is happening. But what does it mean? One villager asked, his eyes wide with fear. What should we do? Do nothing, the elder said softly. Wait. The ancestors will show us the way. The river seemed to pulse, its dark waters shifting in response to the murmurs of the villagers. The tension in the air grew thick. Beware, the elder warned, turning slowly. The river never lies. Abeni walked through the village with grace, her long, dark hair flowing behind her like the river's gentle current. The women watched her with envious eyes, whispering behind their hands. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her purity that held the most weight. Mama Folek, standing nearby, observed the crowd's reaction with a proud smile. My daughter, you are the jewel of Kijiji Osiwo. Abeni looked down at her feet, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. I am only doing my duty, mother. There is no honor in beauty. You are humble, Abeni, but remember, Mama Folek said, her voice firm yet affectionate. Your beauty is a blessing from the ancestors. It is meant to be admired. The villagers nodded as Abeni passed, murmuring among themselves. There she is, the daughter of Mama Folek, the most honored midwife in all the land. Her father may be gone, but she carries his strength, another woman whispered. There is no purer woman in this village. But not everyone spoke kindly. They say beauty is skin deep, a woman muttered to her friend. But what lies beneath? Watch your tongue, the friend hissed. You're talking about Mama Folek's daughter. The news spread like wildfire through the village. Abeni was pregnant, but no man had ever touched her. Whispers echoed down every path, and eyes followed her as she walked. How could this happen? A woman gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. No man has ever touched her. She's pure. She has to be. Maybe she's lying, another woman whispered, clutching her own child protectively. Maybe she has been with someone in secret. But who? Someone asked. We know every man in the village. No one has claimed her. Perhaps it is a curse, an elder said quietly, his eyes narrowing. The spirits may have chosen her, but we must. Be careful. Abeni's face turned pale as she heard the voices around her. The weight of their words pressed down on her chest. They're wrong, Abeni whispered to herself, though the fear in her voice betrayed her words. I have never... But the child... One woman interrupted, shaking her head. What other explanation is there? The women gathered in groups, their voices rising in concern. We must speak to the elders, one of the men said, his voice heavy with authority. They will know what to do. The sacred hut of justice was filled with the murmurs of the elders. The air was thick with tension. They were divided. Some wanted to cast Abeni out, while others felt the need to understand more. This cannot go unpunished, one elder said, his voice thunderous. She has brought dishonor to this village. No one has seen her with a man. This is a curse, a punishment from the ancestors. No, another elder countered, we do not know the truth. We must seek the wisdom of the spirits before we judge her. But the evidence is clear, the first elder insisted. Abeni is carrying a child who does not belong to any man here. We must act swiftly before the curse spreads. Mama Folek stood, nearby, her hands trembling, her heart torn between her daughter and the village she loved. Please, she said, her voice pleading. My Abeni has done no wrong. The gods know she is pure. This is not her fault. Do not defend her, Mama Folake. The first elder snapped. Your daughter has brought shame on you. She will be exiled for the good of the village. Please, Mama Folake begged. Let us find the truth first. There must be another explanation. Abeni stood at the edge of the village, watching as the gossip grew louder, spreading like a wildfire that could not be quenched. The villagers no longer greeted her with warmth. They avoided her eyes, their whispers following her every step. What if she's hiding something? A woman murmured to her friend. What if she's done something we don't know? She's bringing a curse to our village, the friend replied. I won't let my children near her. She is a threat to us all, a man said, shaking his head. The child she carries, it is not human. We must protect ourselves. Abeni's heart sank as she heard the words, each one stabbing her like a dagger. They don't know me, she whispered under her breath. A few villagers still stood by her. She is one of us, an older man shouted, stepping forward. She has done nothing wrong. But his voice was drowned out by the growing voices of fear. We don't know what's inside her, but we cannot take the chance, another villager said firmly. Mama Folake stood by her daughter's side, her face a mask of grief. Do not listen to them, Abeni, she said softly. They are afraid. We will find the truth. But Abeni, her shoulders heavy with the weight of the village's judgment, could only nod silently. The whispers continued, growing louder and darker with every passing moment. Abeni stands before the elders' council, her heart pounding. Her hands are clasped tightly, her voice shaky but filled with urgency. I swear by the sacred spirits, she pleads, her eyes wide with desperation. No man has touched me. This child, this life within me, is a mystery I cannot explain, but I am innocent. The elders look upon her, their faces stone cold, their silence deafening. You speak of innocence, one elder mutters, eyes narrowing. But your belly grows with a child that should not exist. Abeni steps forward, her voice breaking. I have done no wrong. The spirits know my truth. Why would I lie before you? Why would I bring shame upon my mother? The head elder, his voice stern, replies, Your pregnancy shakes the very core of our traditions, Abeni. We cannot ignore what the ancestors may say. Abeni falls to her knees. Please, she whispers, do not condemn me. As Abeni walks, through the village, the air feels heavier with each step. The once friendly faces of the villagers turn away, their eyes averted. Look at her, one woman whispers harshly. A pure girl, yet carrying a curse. Another mutters, she must have broken the sacred laws. No woman would bear a child without the touch of a man. Abeni's heart tightens as she passes by her old friends, their eyes full of fear and distrust. Don't speak to her. She's cursed, one of them says under her breath. Abeni can barely keep her composure. Why do you turn away from me? She cries out softly. I am still the same person. But the villagers only look at her with suspicion, and she walks alone, the village now a place of cold silence and judgment. Mama Ajoke stands tall, her voice commanding and firm. This village cannot harbor a disgrace. Abeni's pregnancy is a curse, one that the ancestors will not tolerate. Exile is the only way. Her words ring out, sharp and unforgiving. The ancestors punish the impure, she declares. We must not allow this evil to spread among us. The elders listen closely, their eyes shifting nervously. Exile her, another elder agrees. Let her face the consequences of her sin. Abeni looks at Mama Ajoke, pleading silently, but the chief's wife's gaze is unwavering. The ancestors demand it, Mama Ajoke finishes. The river, once clear and pure, now churns with dark, muddy waters. The villagers gather by its edge, murmuring in fear. What is this? This is the work of evil spirits, one man says, shaking his head. Another points towards the water. It's Abeni. She brought this curse upon us. As the elders watch, the river's current grows stronger, pulling debris and trash that were never there before. She has angered the spirits, one elder whispers, fear in his eyes. Abeni stands at the river's edge, her body trembling. I didn't do this. I didn't cause this, she pleads. But the villagers only look at her with distrust. She has, one elder mutters, and we will suffer unless she is cast out. The fields that were once ripe with promise are now barren. The crops, meant to feed the village through the season of harvest, wither and die. Farmers walk through their lands in disbelief, touching the dry, shriveled plants. This is the curse. Abeni's curse! One farmer cries out, his hands shaking. Another adds, first the river, now our crops. The ancestors are punishing us. The elders gather, their faces filled with panic. The village will starve if this continues, one says. We cannot ignore the signs. Abeni walks through the fields, her heart sinking as she watches the destruction. It's not me, she whispers, but no one listens. As she looks at the wilted crops, a familiar voice calls out, You have doomed us all, Abeni. The harvest is lost. The villagers point accusing fingers at her. She brought this upon us. A child, no older than 7, plays near the edge of the village. His eyes widen as he stares into the trees, where a dark shadow moves between the branches. Did you see it? A figure, tall and dark, like a spirit, the child cries, running towards the elders in a panic. The elders meet in haste, debating the boy's words. A spirit? Or something more sinister? One elder asks. Another, shaking with fear, whispers, It was watching Abeni and her child. What does it mean? Another elder asks urgently. One elder, Baba Jahi, steps forward. This is a sign from the ancestors, a warning. The child, wide-eyed, nods. It was looking at her. It knew her. The elders exchange nervous glances, and the fear grows in their hearts. Baba Jahi stands before the elders, his body shaking, as he speaks in a low voice. The child in Abeni's womb is not just any child, Baba Jahi declares. It carries the blood of the ancient spirits. The ancestors speak through it, and it will restore balance to what has been broken. The elders exchange confused looks. What do you mean? One asks. The river, the crops, they are signs. The child is the key, Baba Jahi explains, his voice growing more urgent. The village's actions have angered the ancestors. The child will either save or destroy us. Abeni listens, her heart pounding. What do you mean, destroy us? She whispers. The ancestors will not forgive us if we harm the child. Baba Jahi warns. We must protect it or face their wrath. Baba Jahi enters a trance, his body swaying as he speaks with a voice that is not his own. The spirits have spoken, he intones. This child, Abeni's child, is the chosen one. It holds the power to right the wrongs of our ancestors. But if it is harmed, the village will fall into ruin. The elders listen in stunned silence. What wrongs? One asks. What must we do? Baba Jahi's voice deepens, his eyes unseeing. The child must live. The balance must be restored. But if you harm it, the river will never clear, and the crops will never grow again. Abeni steps forward, fear and resolve in her eyes. Then protect my child, she says. Do not let the curse claim us. Some elders whisper, should we risk it? Should we listen? The village stands divided, the fate of Abeni, her child, and the village hanging in the balance. The small fire flickered, casting long shadows across the group's faces. Fear hung thick in the air, each breath drawn in a mix of desperation and resolve. Their decision was unanimous. The unborn child Abeni carried was no blessing, but a curse. The village teetered on the brink of destruction, and they believed that only by abandoning Abeni to the sacred forest could they avert disaster. One of the villagers, his voice low and trembling, said, "We must leave her to the spirits, or the village will fall." Mama Folik, standing nearby, overheard the conversation. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had to protect Abeni. The moonlight barely illuminated the path as she approached Abeni's hut. From a distance, she saw the villagers dragging Abeni away. "Stop!" Mama Folik's voice rang out with authority, cutting through the night. She stepped into their path, eyes fierce with defiance. "You cannot do this. She is no curse." Villager, face twisted with fear, replied, "You've seen the signs, Mama Folik. Her child will bring ruin." Her voice cracked as she pleaded, "She is no curse. You're blinded by fear." But the villagers, too far gone in their panic, overpowered her. They continued dragging Abeni into the darkened forest. Mama Folik, helpless, watched them disappear into the night, her heart breaking. The forest was thick with ancient trees, their twisted branches forming shadows that seemed to reach for her. Abeni's legs were weak, her body trembling, but the worst of it was the betrayal. The village, the people she loved, had abandoned her. Abeni collapsed beside the sacred river, her breath shallow. "Why?" she whispered, her voice barely audible in the cold air. "Why have you forsaken me?" The forest remained silent, offering no answers. Her heart ached with the weight of rejection. Her body frail, Abeni knelt beside the river. The water's surface shimmered beneath the moonlight, but her exhaustion overcame her. She was on the verge of collapse when her fingers brushed the water's surface, and something strange happened. The air around her shifted, charged with an ethereal energy. A glowing figure emerged from the river, her presence radiant, illuminating the forest. Abeni blinked in disbelief. "Are you real?" Abeni whispered, her voice trembling. The figure stepped closer, her voice soft, yet filled with ancient power. "I am Osanwa," she said, her presence overwhelming. "And you are my chosen." Osanwa's voice echoed within Abeni's mind, ancient and powerful. The river shimmered with an otherworldly glow as Osanwa continued, "Your pregnancy is no curse, it is a blessing." Abeni's heart raced as the truth began to sink in. "But why me?" Abeni asked, still trying to comprehend what was happening. "You carry the bloodline that can restore what was lost," Osunwa explained, her voice gentle but firm. "The villagers have betrayed you, and now, through your child, I return to restore balance." Osunwa's words carried weight, pressing down on Abeni. "You must choose, Abeni," Osunwa said softly. "Return to the village and face their rejection, or leave them behind and raise your child in secret. Your decision will determine the future, not only of your child, but of the village itself." Abeni's heart twisted. She had once called the village her home, but they had abandoned her in her time of need. Could she go back to them? Could she face those who condemned her? Abeni closed her eyes, the weight of the decision suffocating her. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "The path you choose will shape the destiny of both the village and the spirits who watch over it." Osunwa's voice echoed, full of ancient wisdom. "Choose wisely, Abeni." The village was eerily still as Abeni stepped into the square. Her gaze, sharp and unwavering, carried a newfound power that made the villagers uneasy. They watched her from the shadows, unsure whether to flee or approach. Abeni's voice, now strong, broke the silence. "The time for reckoning has arrived." A young villager, his eyes wide, whispered, "What happened to her?" Baba Jahi, the village elder, stepped forward, shaking in awe. "She is no longer the girl we abandoned. She is the chosen one, and her child will heal us." Abeni's eyes met Baba Jahi's. "You betrayed me once, but it's not too late. To make things right, the balance can be restored." Babajahi fell to his knees, overcome with regret. "We were wrong, Abeni. Please, forgive us." Abeni nodded, her expression somber. "The village will be healed, but only if you choose to accept the truth." Abeni's voice broke the silence. "The time for reckoning has arrived." A young villager whispered, "What's happened to her?" Babajahi, shaking, stepped forward. "She's not the same. She's been chosen by the spirits." Babajahi fell to his knees before Abeni, his voice thick with regret. "I see the truth now. You are not cursed, you are chosen." Abeni nodded, calm. "I carry the future of this village. I've come to restore balance." The villagers gasped, some trembling. Abeni's eyes softened. "You failed to understand, but it's not too late to heal." Moments after Abeni gave birth, the land responded. The river, once stagnant, flowed freely, and crops began to flourish. A villager, staring in awe, whispered, "The land, it's healing." Abeni, holding her child with reverence, spoke softly, "This child is the key. Through him, the land will thrive again." The villagers gathered around Abeni, humbled by the truth. They had condemned her without understanding her purpose. "We were wrong," one villager said, his voice filled with regret. Abeni's voice was firm. "Fear and judgment without understanding only bring destruction." Babajahi looked at her with newfound humility. "We've learned our lesson," Abeni nodded. "It's not too late to rebuild." The elders gathered, rewriting the village laws. No longer would women be judged by superstition or fear. They would be judged by their deeds. Babajahi, tears in his eyes, looked at Abeni. "You are no longer an outcast. You are the heart of our village." Abeni, once rejected, was now a symbol of strength and wisdom. Let truth guide the future. As peace settled over the village, the river whispered a message carried on the wind. Remember the past, honor the future. Abeni stood by the river, her heart full. The spirits speak. We must respect both our past and the future we now walk together. The villagers, united in understanding, nodded. "We will remember." With that, the river continued to flow, carrying the lessons of the past into the future.